Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to Into the Darkness, my segment on the channel dedicated to all things horror in the world of film and television. And right now, I am joined by my very good friend, Mr. DJ Anubis of the Metal Tavern Radio.
What is happening, everybody?
Yes, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good, doing good.
Good. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. But right now, we are here to talk about, I guess, a modern successful horror franchise that has, gained a lot of attention and is, you know, kind of becoming like a favorite among younger horror fans. I personally, if I'll be truthful, I have mixed feelings on some of the entries within the movies, but I do enjoy them for what they are. And of course, I'm talking about Insidious. So we'll start off, my good friend. Your first thoughts when you heard about the Insidious franchise, which is also it's a Blumhouse original production, as you know. This is probably one of the franchises outside, I think, The Conjuring, that put Blumhouse on the map.
Yeah, yeah. And both of them have kind of a similar feel in the way they're put together. I mean, they're not exactly alike in terms of plots, but you can just tell that they have a similar vibe from Blumhouse and how they're
Yeah,
made. Um, I'll be honest, this is not one of these franchises that I'm really crazy about. So it actually had to force me to watch some of these other films in the series. But I do like the acting in it. There's a lot of good actors that are involved. So it's not like that's a problem at all in terms of, the people working on them.
hmm
Uh, but you're right. It is a mixed bag, and there's actually a bit of a surprise for me when I did my rankings with this because I was like, wow, I didn't expect to like this one as much as I did over this one. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about it. Let's get cracking. Insidious is an American horror franchise created by Lee Warnell and James Wan. That has been produced by Blumhouse Productions in association with Sony's Stage 6 films since 2010. The films in the franchise include Insidious, Chapter 1, 2, 3, The Last Key, and The Red Door. The films have grossed over 731 million worldwide on a combined budget of 42.5 million. Now, that's one thing I'll say I find impressive about these films is that they don't have a great big budget, but they're bringing in big money.
Hmm.
So that's quite, interesting to see. Um,
Yeah, most definitely. That means they're getting more bang for their buck. So, and on that level, they're doing pretty well.
oh, definitely. Now, this is impressive. The budget of the very first Insidious film was only 1.5 million and it made 100.1 million at the box office.
And the thing about that too is, again, you have Patrick Wilson, who was just had a couple years earlier did Watchmen, and
Yes,
so he was kind of like a bigger name. And then Rose Byrne also has been around. We have a Barbara Hershey in this,
yes.
the first one. So, and then of course Len Shea, who I was telling Neko last night, which she agreed goes all the way back to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. So she's been in the horror genre for a long time.
I'm gonna say
So
she's like a legendary scream queen in her own right. She's
yeah.
like in this franchise, she's like kind of made it her franchise.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. It's all been centered around her pretty much. So,
Yes. So the first film, let's talk about it. The chapter one is Insidious, which came out in 2010. Insidious is a 2010 supernatural, horror film directed and co-edited by James Wan, written by Lee Warnell, and stars Patrick Wilson, as you've said, Rose Byrne, and Barbara Hershey. It is the first installment, and it sets on a story centered on a married couple whose boy inexplicably enters a comatose state and becomes a vessel for a variety of demonic entities in an astral plane. So the family, of course, are known as the Lambert family. I hope they're not related to me because I don't want anything to happen to me. But that is the Lambert family, and there's two sons in this film. There's Dalton, who is there in the blue. They have a other son called Forrest, who's the older sibling, and basically the family live in this home, and they end up moving into this house where all of a sudden Dalton enters the attic and he sees like something, and he sees something in the shadows of the attic, and something kind of happens to him, and it comes across like he's fell over and he's had some sort of accident in the attic, but in actuality he's been attacked by some sort of entity and ends up in a coma. He's in the hospital for weeks and they cannot figure out what's going on with him, and so the family decide to bring him home. When they bring him home, all the supernatural things begin to happen. There's like things hiding in they start to see shadows, or they think they've got Callie, the baby girl, who's in the bedroom, and they've got like the little sound monitors in the room. They can hear voices in Callie's bedroom. The wife Rose goes straight up to the bedroom and she thinks she sees a figure in the corner, and like they start to see little images of children running around. All this crazy shit starts to happen, and this is where the mother enters. Josh Lambert, who's played, like you say, Patrick Wilson, who is the father. His mother starts to see all this supernatural things happening, and it's clear that she knows something. And it's soon revealed that she knows somebody that can help, and they bring in Elsie. So Elsie, who you said is played by the fantastic
Lin Shay.
Lin Shay, and they bring her in, and she's like a psychic medium, and she has this ability to be able to talk to the dead. And she then soon reveals to the family that basically Dalton has this gift. He's able to, project himself into this mysterious place known as the Further, which is like, of course, the next realm. He gets to project himself into this realm, and while he's in this realm, it's like being in purgatory. You've got all these really nasty, dark, spiritual entities that are living in the Further, in this, purgatory realm. And they have been using this kind of gap to come into the house and cause all this supernatural turmoil and trauma to the family. But there is one particular entity that I found fascinating, and it is the Bride in Black. And the Bride in Black is basically revealed that Josh's mother had already contacted Elsie when he was young. He blocked out the memories of him being stalked by the Bride in Black, which was an entity that would stalk him. And he also has the gift to enter the Further. And it's soon realised by Elsie that, the only way they can save Dalton is if he goes into the Further and retrieves him. So that's your basic plot, where basically they have to try and rescue Dalton from the Further and enter the red door, this red door that mysteriously appears. But behind the red door, you're then introduced to the demon that has basically captured Dalton, which is, I guess, the main foe, the big bad, the main
red-faced demon.
Yes, the red-faced demon. Which I have to say that the look of this design and demon is pretty terrifying.
Looks almost like Darth Maul.
Yeah, I was thinking that Darth Maul. So, what's your thoughts of the plot in the first initial film?
Well, yeah. So, like I said, these films, the way they're designed, are a lot like the Conjuring series, and so obviously, the Conjuring deals with the Warren family, the Warren couple that go and take care of ghosts and goblins and stuff like that, and they're ghost hunters. But here, they only have one, which is basically Elise, and but it's kind of set up the similar way where like they have to hunt down these ghosts and try to, in this case, as you said, the young boy Dalton, he's been in a coma, and of course the mother thinks that the house is haunted because she's seeing things that move and figures and stuff like that. But then it turns out Elise tells her, it's not the house, it's your son who's haunted. And then, as you said, uh, Josh has to go in under hypnosis and go into the further to retrieve him because that's the only way they can really get their son out. But obviously, they have to deal with this red faced demon, which one of the better moments I liked was when Elise was inside the house. And, this is when Dalton is still in the bed. And she's kind of looking up at the dark ceiling with the fan, and she's speaking whatever to herself, as she's like seeing what's going on. And so the guy next to her is writing down what she sees and or drawing a picture. And then the wife, Renee, she like comes over and looks at the picture. She's clearly seen this creature before too, this demon. So she turns on a light and there's nothing there. But in the picture, it's dark and they can see the creature just kind of hovering over Dalton's bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one thing I don't like about the way this movie goes about is like I wish they weren't so obvious with
Yeah.
the red demon, because like you had that scene where I believe it's Lorraine Hershey's character who
The mother. Yeah.
yeah, she sees the red face demon behind Josh like when he moved. Yeah. And so I'm like, I understand they want the jump scare for that, but it just gives too much away for me, and so it kind of looks corny in some ways when it happens.
Can I tell you something? I went to see this in theatres with a friend,
Yeah,
and there's a certain scene in the movie, right? And I knew this was going to happen. I totally agree with what you're saying. The jump scares, some of them were predictable. So, for example, there's a scene where Rose Byrne's character, the wife, is walking around the house because she can hear noises, and she walks past the door. Well, there's a cupboard at the door, and the door's there, the cupboard's there, but you can clearly see behind the door there's a little child standing behind the door, and she doesn't see him. But I don't know if that was an editing mistake where we weren't meant to see the child, because the next thing you know, she turns around, and as she's walking past the same closet, the boy comes running past her in like the period outfit, and you get meant
yeah,
to jump again. I didn't jump because I knew I seen the child behind the door. But I don't know if that was deliberate where we are meant to see the child, or if that was an editing mistake. Because
possible. Yeah,
honestly, because me and my friend were like, everyone's like in the theaters, and I was like, he was behind the door. See him behind the door.
did you not see him? He was behind the door.
And so I don't know if that was an editing mistake of wait, that was deliberate, because when they jumped in the theater, I thought, oh, well, you saw him. But that was one of the mistakes. So, like you say, the jump scares are kind of predictable in this, but I still like the story. And the one thing I like about these particular films is, like how the Conjuring films, how the kind of the own separate movies that are focused on the Warren family, but by the end of the movie, there's always like an Easter egg that links them to the previous movie or a future
Yeah,
movie. But the Easter eggs are so small, you've got to kind of pick up on them. Where one thing I like about these particular films, if you watch them, is the link the story up together.
yeah,
So right at the beginning of this one, like I say, when Dalton goes into the attic, you hear the creaking of something there. and you realise that there's an entity or something there in the attic with him. But then it's revealed in the story that because Dalton's in this coma, and he's now, his astral projection is now trapped in the further, it's created a doorway for all these entities to come in and haunt the house. So then it made me think, well, how is that possible when he was attacked originally?
Yeah.
But then that goes back to the fourth one, the last key, which I'll talk about. So
Yeah, I do like the ending of this one because it changes it up. I mean, definitely leaves the door open for a sequel initially. So like, I like the whole idea where Elise is taking a quick picture of Josh at the end there, and then she sees exactly what's going on and understands what happened. Because obviously, one of the things that they always talk about with this with Elise, her character, is that once you go into the further, when you come back, you oftentimes will bring something back with you. So it's sort of like a personal haunting type of thing where even if you go into the further, once you come back, you may bring something back with you once you open that door.
So just listen to what you've just said there. When you go into the further, you can often bring something back. Now that ties into the last key. And it's actually because of the event in the last key that the events in the first movie transpire.
Okay.
So so obviously there's two storylines that unfolded in the first movie. The one is Dalton's coma and what got him in the coma, and then the reveal that Josh has the same ability. And when he was younger, he was stalked by the Bride in Black. And then, of course, when he goes in to rescue Dalton, he meets up with the Bride in Black who's been stalking him since a child, and there's that creepy moment where she's staring at him, smiling, and she kind of just backs away after he confronts her. And this leads to the final where Josh is sitting, but he's acting very erratic. Elise takes the photo. There's a bit of a commotion goes on, and then when Josh's husband, when Josh's wife comes in to see what's going on, he finds Elisa's dead body on the floor, and Dalton starts standing over her. But then when she looks down at the photo that's been taken, it's not an image of Josh, it's the image of the Bride in Black, which I thought was
Which I
fantastic.
wonder, is that supposed to be sort of like a callback to the Hammer film?
The Hammer film, was that not the Woman in Black?
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it's just trying to be like a sort of nostalgic callback to that character at all.
It potentially could be, because I don't know if the movie came out before it or after it, but I know it wasn't Daniel Radcliffe in the Woman in
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
no,
Radcliffe was a remake, obviously, but
yeah,
yeah, it's, it has that theme, same thing with the Bride in
yeah,
Black.
yeah. But generally, I thought the first film was a nice surprise. But obviously, I don't know if this came before or after The Conjuring, but it's because of Insidious and The Conjuring that basically Blumhouse became mainstream. So the first film was an interesting ride, and then straight away we got a couple of years later, we eventually did get Insidious
Chapter
Chapter
2.
2, which basically I found very strange how this film took off. Because this film basically starts like a couple of weeks after or a few months after the event of the first one. Elise is now being murdered. Or they don't know actually should be murder or just had some sort of episode, because
Yeah.
Josh isn't charged for a murder. It's still in investigation. He's acting very strange and erratic. Obviously his wife, like it's played by Rose Bryan, who's actually called Renee, she's like kind of carrying on with her life. And when they think everything's kind of going back to normal, strange things begin to happen again. around the house, and events start to transpire. And the one thing I will say I like about this movie is they give Barbara Hershey a stronger role in this second
Yeah.
movie. And it kind of, like I say, the one thing I do like about these movies is they kind of continue to tie them together. And so basically, the plot of the second movie is like a continuation of the first plot, where Dalton's kind of out of this coma. They defeated the red-faced demon, so they think. The woman in the bride in black now becomes the main focus. She was like the side story in the first movie, where in this one you get to know the history. And the
Yeah.
history of this one is basically the mother, Lorraine, the mother, worked in a mental institution or worked in a hospital, and there was a man there at the hospital. And the man who was in the hospital was called Parker Crane, sorry. And Parker Crane was in the hospital, and he was a patient there who also had an abusive upbringing by his mother. And his mother used to torment him and used to say, "You're a girl, you are meant to be a girl," mentally tortured him. Now, that's playing into the world today, but we're not going to talk about it. We're not going political here. We had to talk
Yeah.
about horror. But you can.
This wasn't by choice. He was forced to be a little girl.
Yes, and obviously, this is his mother. So basically, the plot is of this one is that you've got this female ghost who's terrorizing Renee, because, like you see, when you come back from the further, something comes back with you, and something followed Josh from the further, and it turns out it is the ghost of the bride in black's mother's now terrorizing the house. Then it also revealed that the bride in black is actually a man who is this Parker Crane, who used to get dressed up in a bridal gown, a black bridal, and murder women, and is a serial killer. And he has been tormenting Josh since he was a young boy. And so that is all revealed. And then you're also introduced again to Elise, who is now, obviously, her spirit is now wandering the further. And to save Josh, they have to finally vanquish the bride in black and the spirit of the mother, who is now followed through because there's an opening, because Josh's body is possessed by the bride in black.
Yep.
So the story, I think, in the second one is it takes the story from the first one, and it literally enhances everything. It enhances like the background. It builds on the mythology, the world of the further, and the connection of these spirits and characters. So that's why I think the second one is just as good as the first one.
Yes and no, but they are different in vibe too. So, like you said, this is more about Josh and his possession as opposed to just the first one where the young boy is basically being haunted by the red demon face demon. But it does, again, like you said, it does kind of follow like The Conjuring, where it switches gears, goes from the red-faced demon to the bride in black, where she's now the focal point of the story, and that's where it goes with that. So I do kind of like enjoy that where they are kind of mixing it up. They're not being too repetitive. It's not like Paranormal Activity where it's just kind of rehashing the same shit over and over. They're at least attempting to mix it up, sort of like The Conjuring does.
The one thing I will say, like I say, I like this one because it's a continuing of the story and take the story further. Like you say, it's not a reenactment or repetitive of the story from the first one. They do have quite a good story where it continues and it's not like a rehash. The only my biggest negative is they try too hard, I think, in the second one even more than the first one for jump scares.
Yes.
I think that's the downfall of the second one. They have a great story, but instead of making the story even scarier by going deeper, they decide to focus on the jump scares. Like you see when you meet the woman and the bride in black's mother, where Renee is walking around the house and suddenly she's standing there and she sees her sitting on the sofa, and then she turns around and she basically is there and like jumps at her. Like, I kind of knew something like that was going to happen before it even happened. Like you say, the predictability of some of the scares. So would you say you prefer the first one over the second one, or?
Currently, yeah, I would take the first one over the second one. I mean, they're close, but not like I still prefer the first one.
Mm-hmm. So here we go. So some interesting facts about this one. It's two characters I keep forgetting to mention, and that is, of course, Specs and Tucker.
Yes.
Now, Specs and
They
Tucker.
play a factor.
Yes. So obviously in the first one, you're introduced to these kind of two con artists, kind of paranormal researchers, which is Specs and Tucker. And the one who plays Specs is actually played by Lee Wannell, the writer. So the one in the glasses there, that's Lee Wannell, who was actually the writer of the Insidious films with James Wan.
Oh, okay.
So he's actually got an acting role as well as obviously writing these particular films. And obviously in the first movie, you're introduced to them and you can tell they're basically like trying to be the guys out of the Poltergeist films that come in and do like the research and of like if the paranormal activities that's going around the spirit, but that you can clearly tell they haven't got a clue what they're doing. And obviously Elise is like, she is like the main one. So basically, the characters of Elise and the two are exactly the same characters that were in the Poltergeist films. If you think about it, they're like the modern day versions.
Exactly.
And the second movie, because Elise is now in the further as a spirit, they take more of a role of trying to help the Lambert family, figure out where this bride in black come from, what's now haunting the household. Lorraine's now more involved. So, like I say, the story is it's an enhancement from the first one that go deeper into the lore, but the jump scares in the second one for me is what lets it down.
Agreed.
So we're now on to chapter 3. Oh, where are we? Chapter 3. Now, chapter 3 doesn't focus on the Lambert family. Chapter 3 focuses on
Brenner,
yeah. So this is the first prequel film, because as you know, this is where, especially with the Conjuring series, you had the Conjuring main storyline, and then you had the Annabelle movies, and then you had like all these other movies connected that were prequels, and you had like the known, and it's like this is where things get puzzling in the Conjuring. Like where do I start? What film do I watch first to understand the full chronological storyline? When it comes to this, though, it's a lot more easier to understand. So this film is a prequel, and it takes actually place a few months before the first Insidious.
Yeah, this one, first I was a little confused because obviously I knew that Elise had died. So what the hell is that? I got my own ghost going on out here. Anyway, so yeah, I was surprised when I saw her because I wasn't really sure if this was a prequel or not. So I was like, well, how is she alive now? But obviously, as the movie goes on, I realize that this is before she even goes to the Lamberts.
Mhm.
But I was also very enjoyable in terms of the movie itself. I enjoyed the acting. Uh, Again, I thought Stephanie Scott as Quinn was excellent in this. I really liked her in this. Uh, and this one, we talked about the jump scares. I got jump scared about 3 times in this film, so they did a good
Yeah,
job of mixing it
yeah,
up. I did not see that car hitting her at all. I didn't see
yeah.
that coming.
Oh, I think feedback from the first two films were the stories are good, but the scares are predictable. So I
Yeah,
generally feel the writers and creators of the films learned right. We need to keep a consistent story that's entertaining and keeps the people wanting to watch and come back to these films. But we can't allow the scares to be predictable. So I think the first one had some decent scares, but some of them you knew were coming. The second one I thought was more predictable in the scares, where
yeah.
this one, like you say, the focus on trying to tell a good story, but also create scares that you couldn't see coming. So it's an improvement in that direction. And I think out of the first three, this is probably my favourite.
Yes, agreed.
Um,
Which was a
I like,
surprise. I kind of like that it was a surprise because normally when sequels go on, they usually get worse. In this case, this one was actually quite good.
so the story of this one, quick, is you've got Quinn Brenner, and she lives with her dad, Sean Brenner. A few months prior, she lost her mother, and she's grieving. Suddenly she's now, they live in this apartment, and suddenly they're being targeted by a mysterious spirit, which is called the spirit in this one is called
The Man Who Can't Breathe.
the man who can't breathe, and he's a person who apparently lived in this apartment. And basically what happens is he's trying to scare Quinn, the lovely Quinn, who's played by Stephanie Scott, who I thought did a brilliant job. Obviously, Dermot Mulroney's in this particular film. You've got
Yep.
Specs and Tucker are back in this film.
Yeah,
And
and this
so,
is kind of like their origin story. So you talked about how they were just basically like run of the mill ghost hunters on TV. And so this is where they get their start, of course.
yeah. So, like you see, the first film, they come across like these like con artists, television wannabe paranormal activists. Where in this one, you see actually how it all came about, and like I say, each film kind of enhances a certain character. So the first one was about Dalton, the red faced demon. The second one was about focus more on Josh and the bride in black. This one's now focuses on Elise and Tucker and Spec and Tucker, and also kind of telling the story this girl who's being stalked by the man who can't breathe. It's also a story about grief because she's grieving over her mother, and of course the spirit, the spirit, the man who can't breathe, using the grief to try to target her so he can use that to come out of the further and back into the real world. And you also find out her backstory, Elsie's backstory, how she with her friend Carl, where she's kind of lost her faith and lost her hope and lost her ability, because obviously she's had tragic events that's happened in her life.
And that's where I was getting confused initially because she talks about when Quinn first approaches her about how Quinn thinks that her mom is trying to contact her through the other side. And Elisa's like, well, I don't do readings anymore because of, once you kind of open these doors, things come back. And so that kind of confused me. I was like, well, if she's traumatized from, because I'm thinking from the first film, like I'm thinking she's still like not a ghost here or whatever,
Mhm.
but if she's traumatized, then why would she end up coming back to it? But then I realized, I think you mentioned it when Josh was younger, his mother contacted Elise back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where that connection with the bride in the black is coming from. So that's why
Yeah.
Elise is still scared of her at that point. So initially, if you watch the first film, you don't know there's that history there between Elise and the bride in black. This film tells you why there's that history there.
Yeah. So this film obviously she had the history with the bride in black and trying to help Josh, like, and regress create new memories, regress these memories, but also ties back to the fourth film, because the fourth film even goes backwards with Elise. So the fourth film is actually before this one.
So that's the last key. Is that the fourth one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So also also, if you remember, in the something mentioned is there's no time in the further.
The further, yeah.
You can go into the past, you can go into the future, because there's a scene in the second one where Josh, an older Josh, he's standing behind Dalton in the first movie.
Yeah.
And that's because he's there to look at his son and say, well, how can that be? That was in the past. Because the same
I think even Josh sees, like, or talks to his younger self too at some point.
Yes. So it's like if you've seen Welcome to Derry, it's similar to Pennywise. He's got no fraction of time; he just exists in it all. In that particular scene with Pennywise, where he goes to the girl and she shows her the picture of her future son, and she's like, "Your son's the one that's gonna kill me in the future," and you're like, "Well, what?" So the further's like, it's a bit like that, where you can go past, future, present. And so basically, Elise starts investigating this man, and the man who doesn't breathe. And then she finally realizes that the spirit of her mother that's who's trying to get Quinn to come into the further isn't actually a mother. It's the man that can't breathe that's disguising himself as the mother to try and make her come into the further, so he then can take over her body and come into the present world. So the plot of the third one, I think it's a good story, because it's quite, for me, why I like it. It's showing you how manipulative the spirits can be.
Not only that, but like you and I have talked about before, this particular film, there's a really big emotional attachment at the end. Like, you start feeling the emotion between the mother, the daughter, and stuff like that. It's a little bit cliche because we kind of seen stuff like that before, but I like that this movie actually goes there, because I don't feel a lot of that in the first two films. Like, I don't feel that, like, emotional attachment about it. Like, it's good acting, but I don't get that same thing like I do with this film. This one, you can actually feel the girl's pain, both emotionally and physically. And then you have that ending with the mother, of course, and I thought that was a really good part there too. I wish they would have went like Ghost on that one, and sort of like had the father actually see her just for a split second, maybe see his wife and be happy, but they didn't really go that route. But either way, I still got the emotion out of it that I wanted, which was pretty nice to see.
Yeah, like I say, like, going back to what I was going to say, like, it shows how manipulative that the spirit can be, because the spirit of the man who can't breathe can actually see that Quinn's grieving. She's a tormented soul grieving over her money, and he uses her grief for his own advantage. And obviously, like you say, you have that amazing moment with the spirit of her mother at the end of the film.
Well, you're right. He does that a lot, because there's other spirits in the house that he in the past manipulated and got them to kill themselves, because that's what he does.
Yeah. So, like, that's another part of the plot where he uses his ability to get people to commit suicide and kill themselves. And like you said, one of the initial scares in the film is where she's outside, and he he's in the background waving at her, and she thinks she can see her mother. He disguises himself as her mother, and he does that to distract her so she can get run over.
Yeah.
Basically, I don't know if he was trying to get her killed or just to cripple her, which he does get her crippled, where she's now housebound. And now that she's housebound and stuck in the house, he now can take full advantage of her.
Yeah, I don't think she was supposed to live because she did flatline for a little bit, but they did bring her back, and I think that's what Elise was talking about later on. She's like, he has part of you, he doesn't have all of you, so that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get the rest of you so he can complete his soul or whatever it is he's trying to do with her body.
Yeah. But for me, out of the first 3 chapters, even though this isn't linked, well, the only link this has to the first 3 is that, Elise is in her house, and she gets the phone call from Lorraine, the mother from the first 2 films, and she goes, "I need you to come because I've got an issue with my grandson, Dalton."
Yep.
So basically this film is set in. So the first film is set in, I think, 2010. This is set 3 years later or a year late. This is like set in 2009 or 8. So it's like before the first film. And this is where things get even creepier, because we have Insidious, The Last Key. Now, this film, for me, I know you haven't seen this one, but for me, this is probably one of my favourites because it's so dark. So this film is set before even the first film, in the chapter 3. So this is basically about Elisa's childhood. Basically, she's a paranormal investigator. She's got a sad upbringing with her father, who her father was quite abusive to her, Elaine and her sisters. Ties back to her family. And she's got her friend Carl, who I think was introduced in the 3rd film. And basically, she gets asked to come to a childhood home where there's homes. And, so in 1953, Elise, she lives in 5 Keys, New Mexico, with her parents, Audrey and Gerald, and her brother, Christian. And, there's a spirit hiding in the bedroom when they're kids. They can see it, they can feel it. And then many years later, there's a connection there with the whistle. There's a whistle involved in this. So when Christian was little, he had this whistle, and he used to blow on the whistle. And suddenly, events transpire where her mother dies. And when the mother dies, they're grieving over the mother. The father becomes very abusive. He starts beating Elise and all of this stuff. And this is where Elise, when she's younger, she's starting to now get the gift to be able to see spirits or to feel things. And suddenly, she goes down into the basement when she's younger, and suddenly she gets this feeling, and she sees a red door, and she opens the door. And when she opens this door, this demonic spirit comes out, who I think in this one is called Keyface.
Yeah.
So this spirit comes out of this red door, and it kills her mother, basically, Audrey. And so basically, when she's a kid, she's got her brother, her father, her mother, Audrey, and her brother, Christian. And you have a flashback of her. You see this scene where she's at the funeral, and then her dad beats her up. But then after he beats her up, there's the flashback of why the mother died. And the flashback is Elise was in the basement, and she started getting the urge, and she starts going into the further, and she opened the door, and when she opened the door, the key-faced demon came out and killed her mother.
Ah.
So that's why, if you go back to the third one, when she says, I don't do this anymore, that's why.
Yeah, because she's opening portals.
Yeah, and then she says when you all start to open portals, things come back with you. And basically she left, obviously she was beat up and she was badly abused by her dad, who beat her up. Many years later, she's now regained the strength to want to be, to investigate things, and she's then made to go back to her own house many years later. And when she's in the house, she realizes that the family's being tormented by this demon in the house. And the demon that they're being tormented is Kayface, the demon that she's basically allowed to live in the house. And so she basically starts trying to protect the family and defeat Kayface. And there's loads of connections to her dad. Her dad was abusive. He was abusive to other women. But there is quite a twist, because I don't know if you want us to spoil it for you or not.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't know if I ever get around to seeing this one.
So basically, I mentioned the mother was in the basement and the mother was killed by the demon. And then but when she saw her mother get killed, she didn't know if that it was a real mother or an apparition of her mother. It turned out it turns out that her dad, not only was he abusing Elise, the mother, it turns out he was keeping young girls or young women trapped in parts of the house and beating them and abusing them.
Oh, wow.
Because throughout the course of the movie, Elise starts getting these visions of these women, and she thinks they're ghosts, but then she realizes they're not ghosts, they're memories.
Now, I am reading a little bit, which is kind of cool, because you talked about how this kind of brings everything full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's apparently a point where Melissa or somebody, they open the wrong door, and that's where they see a young Dalton in the attic.
Yeah. So that's this is why I was saying to you, it ties back to the first one, because they opened the door and let the red demon out to get Dalton. So really, Elise is the reason Dalton was possessed. So it literally...
Now, does she ever address that later, like in the other two movies, or no?
It was never brought up.
But I guess part of that's probably because Elise is young, right? She's young at this point.
Yeah, yes. Because it's like what was said before, there's no time in the further. You can go into the past, you can go into the present, you can go into the now. And because of that, she opened that door, looked out of it, and she seen this young boy just standing around in an attic. And clearly, when you heard the creaking in the first film, clearly she opened that door. And as
that's when the demon got out.
She allowed the red-faced demon out. But you're also in this movie, you see, I think at the end of the movie, she's sitting at her kitchen table and she can feel a presence. And then next thing you know, you see the red-faced demon behind her.
Uh-huh.
So the red-faced demon has basically been following her around. And I think what he's done is when she confronted Kayface and confronted her past and the abusive nature of her father and freeing the spirit of these girls and everything that was going on, I think the red demon was watching it all. He was basically seeing how it would unfold, and then he followed Elise, and he's been following on the back of her, because once he followed her and he knew she had this gift and she was going to open doors, was going to open possibilities for him to be able to create chaos and possess somebody. And she opened the right door at the right time, which led to a young boy called Dalton, and he saw that as his opportunity.
Now, they don't mention it in the notes or anything in the plot, but it did list Stephanie Scott in this film. Did she make an appearance somewhere in this?
Stephanie Scott, yes, she does.
Quinn.
They mentioned basically at the end of this movie, she gets the phone call to go, I think, because obviously there's a scene in this movie where she opens the door, you see young Dalton, and she shuts the door, that's it. Then
Yeah.
she's sitting at the table, she gets the phone call, and it's Quinn's dad
Okay.
saying, I've got an issue with my daughter, I think I need your help. And she said, I'll be there in the morning. Puts the phone down and she's smiling. And as she's smiling, you hear the creaking. And then I don't know if you see his face or you just see his hand go on her shoulder. You know, the red faced demon. So he's always there.
Yeah.
So this is a prequel before the third one. So if you were to watch these in order, you would watch
This one
the
first,
you'd
then
watch the last
3,
chapter 3, 1, 2, and then the final one
Red
is
Door.
the Red Door, which you did manage to see, I believe.
Yeah, I did see this. This is actually the second time I've seen this one.
So the last movie, as you see, is the Red Door, which I'll let you talk about this one. What did you think of this one, the Red Door?
I hate this one. Clearly, the funny thing is the one aspect I actually liked about it is the one aspect they don't spend a lot of time on is the fact that, of course, and you kind of saw it happening from the second film when Josh is being possessed and he almost kills his family. He gets that close. And so, even at the end of that, how his interaction is with his wife, like she's terrified of him. And because you can't really tell if someone's possessed or not, it makes it very hard for her to kind of get over that. So obviously at the beginning of this one, he's divorced from his wife. And so they're separated, but now he's taking an older Dalton to college and dropping him off. And there's like this, conflict with them because Josh is still going through a lot of his own bullshit. He's still dealing with like after effects and all that. And I think this is the one where they had their minds erased because
they both had Elise did the thing where she hid the memories in, then so they don't have any acknowledge of it.
Yeah, so obviously him and Dalton still have these gaps. Like I think Dalton even says when he was 10, he doesn't remember anything from that year. But so there's tension there between dad and son because dad is going through shit, but the son feels like he's kind of neglecting him. And then, of course, he's thrown it in his face about his mom divorcing him and leaving. So there's just a lot of tension there that I wish they would have concentrated on more. Just from a point of like if you allow all that negativity from the couple, it helps with the story of the ghost and everything that's haunting them, but they kind of don't touch on that too much. But they do focus on Dalton more at college. He befriends his roommate, which is a girl.
Is it Chris?
Is her name Chris? Sinclair Daniel? Is that her?
I think that's Chris, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's her. So she's an interesting character, very strong and bubbly and whatnot, but she's sarcastic too. She doesn't put up with a lot of shit. But she gets along with Dalton. And so, but then, she quickly realizes that he has his gift to astral project. But that again, it starts opening doors that shouldn't be open. And so he starts running into his problem, but he's using his art to kind of like try to put things together because he doesn't remember anything about when he was a kid. So he just draws like a red door and then all this other stuff. And his dad and him share this, like, I don't know if it's telepathy or whatever, but they kind of share space whenever they go into that. But, one thing I did like, and I don't know what your feeling is, but there's a moment where Josh is in the CAT scan and it goes dark. And I think that tension there is great. But then, of course, they kind of rely back onto that moment we talked about in the first one when you see the demon, like he
Yeah,
looks down, he sees like something running at him. Like you didn't really need that. Maybe a shadow, but I thought the tension with the dark. Yeah, so you didn't necessarily need that per se. You could have just had like a shadow in the back, and that would have been just as scarier.
yeah.
Um,
There's
but
actually, going back to what you're saying, some of the things that scare me, whereas there's that saying less is more.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
there's like it's saying like in the first one where you've got the guy goes who's walking like outside of the window and he's just walking past the window and you can hear his footsteps. I was shitting myself because you're not nothing's actually scaring you. It's just the uncomfortableness and knowing that there's a man on your roof walking past a window and it's like shit.
and that's the thing too. Like the third film, there's like an excellent moment. Like even though you see the man who can't breathe a lot,
Mhm.
there's a moment when he comes in her bedroom and he closes the curtains and then closes the door and then shuts the laptop down
Yes.
because like he just wants it pitch black. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh, that's creepy, man, because he's
Yeah.
like totally making it dark. So that's the kind of stuff that I like,
Yeah.
which they
I
kind of
agree.
with these main films they don't really do that. They don't really they just play off of the you can see the creatures and stuff. So I don't know, it doesn't really hit me the same way. But anyway, so eventually Dalton and his dad basically have to go back into the further and kind of like resolve this with the demon that's still messing around with him.
Yeah.
Um,
They go
I
back
think this
behind the
is
red
also
door.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, Obviously, Elise is still a part of this in terms of spirit. She still has a factor in all this. But this one left me kind of like unimpressed compared to a lot of the other ones in the series.
I think, I think for me, once you got past the initial story in the second one with the Lambat and she had erased the memories of the events, I think they should have just left it alone and maybe focused on something else. Uh, Patrick Wilson, who plays Josh, directed that film, and I don't know if it was his first ever chance of directing. So I think he did a decent job in terms of directing, but I just think there were elements of the scares and the story you could have worked on better. Like like you said, when it came to the third film, chapter three, you had scares, yes, you had this really clever evil antagonist in the man that doesn't breathe, but you also had this emotional attachment with her grieving over her mother and their moments with the mother.
Yeah,
Now, the fact that them two had like this, they had kind of had drifted apart, father and son, and had this tension between them. I feel as if they could have done better with that, and I feel as if when it came to them coming together at the end, they could have showed a moment where potentially one of them really was going to potentially meet their end and have this really emotional moment and then pull
yeah.
it back. And I feel like they missed the mark on adding the emotion.
Yes. Yeah, because like I said earlier, when Dalton basically kind of curses his dad out and says, this is why mama left you. He kind of just storms out and goes to his car. And I expected him to kind of have a breakdown moment there
Mm-hmm.
where, but they don't ever go that far. And so I think, again, like you said, they missed the opportunity to show some of that raw emotion that, because like the minute you see the wife like give him that hug pat, like it's just more of a friendly thing rather
Yeah.
than any kind of like love or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like you can tell that they're no longer together. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a very interesting dynamic because of what
Yeah.
happened in the second film.
Yeah.
So I wish they would have gone more with a more
And I
emotional
think as
connection.
well when it came to the red faced demon, because this is the final chapter of apparently the Lambat family, they should have made him desperate. Like what I mean is they should have made the demon come across that because he's failed two attempts of basically controlling the Lambert family. They should have seen him at his most evil, his most, you know, malevolence
Yeah.
and really be vicious, evil. You should have seen people die left, right, and center. I think they should have killed a few people off.
Well, yeah, and that's such a great point because we didn't talk about with the third film, but when Quinn gets possessed, it just comes out of nowhere, and she's like
Yeah.
smacking him with like a pipe wrench, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And she
It's like
starts
Evil
kicking the
Dead shit.
cast off. Yeah, that shit was awesome. That was awesome because she played that possessed girl very well.
Yes, definitely, 100% agree. And like you see, like if he is the red-faced demon is meant to be the big bad of the whole franchise, he should have been dark as fuck in this one. And
Yeah,
I felt like he was just meh.
Mhm.
But I think they've dropped the ball with the fourth one. But I still think Patrick Wilson did his best. Like you say, Quinn being possessed was way better than Dalton.
Yes, yes.
Like her performance was just perfect for me. But obviously, that is the films. We're going to rank them in a moment, but the series is going to continue because it's being filmed and it's due out sometime this year. The next entry is going to be this one. It's called The Bleeding World. And Lynn Shea is back in this one. And after that one, they've actually got a spin off film coming out, which is called Thread, An Insidious Tale, which I don't know if that's going to be. That for me sounds like it's going to be a standalone spin off. They're probably going to try and do what they've done with the Conjuring series, and basically where you had the initial Conjuring storyline, then you created a side storyline of the Nun and Annabelle. I think that's the plan.
Yeah, you know, it'd be kind of cool too, though, is if and I don't know if they're even considering it, but if they can find a way to bring Quinn back later, maybe as almost like an apprentice to Elise. You know, she's sort of now like a reader, so to speak, and so she, you know, because she is more positive now because of her experience with her mom and Elise. So I just like her as an actress. I think she'd be really cool to bring back.
I've got two ideas. Like, instead of focusing on, obviously they're going to keep churning out films because if they're making the money, when hey ho, do what you want to do. I've got two ideas for a television series. The first one, I think they should do like an anthology series where each episode its own contained horror story featuring the different demons from the movies. So
Yeah,
another story with the bride in black, another story with the key face demon, the red demon, and even bring back the man who can't breathe and introduce a couple of new demons, like him who had the hat on that was walking around the outside of the house. They never really delved deeper into that character. So they could have
yeah,
had, maybe he's going to be featured in the next two films, you don't know. In another series, you are spot on, you and me are thinking the same wavelength. I'd love a series, it's Insidious series that focus on Quinn becoming the paranormal, investigator with Tucker and Specs,
yeah,
and then they could make it like that show Medium,
yeah, yeah,
where she sees the spirits, but the spirit she sees at the side is Elise, and they work together to solve the
yeah,
mysteries.
yeah. That'd be
Uh,
awesome.
that would be, I would watch that television series in a heartbeat, and they could make it scary.
Yeah, most
Like,
definitely.
yeah, I find producers in that though. I don't know why, because I know films that only have like a 2 hour time frame. They try to make them scary or jump scary, but then if you look at shows on television, the fact that they give them like 8, 10 episodes and they stretch the plot out, they have more opportunity to really delve into story, scary and in lore. Look at, like you say, keep going back to it. Welcome to Dairy. That
Yeah,
show blew them films out the water.
yep, yep.
Look at
Yeah,
like
it
another.
give you flexibility to expand more. Obviously, you want to make sure you're going to have an audience for it, but part of it too is, and this is what's really got to take your hats off to the people that made Welcome to Derry, is that the films did okay, but you did hear a lot of pushback from people that didn't really care for them.
Mm,
So the fact that they were still able to make a lot of people happy with the series
mm,
despite that is a pretty impressive effort.
yeah. Yeah, so Andy and Barbara Machete, who made the It movies, wrote and directed the It movies. Obviously, I can understand the backlash, but I understand that they were trying to make like the It for a new generation, which I think they've succeeded. I've said it before. Andy, like I said before, Bill Skarsgård, sorry, he's going to be, in many people's eyes, he's going to be the go-to Pennywise now. Old
Yeah.
school fans, or fans who appreciate the original, will always love Tim Curry. I'll always love Tim Curry, but I understand the popularity in Bill Skarsgård. But I do understand the backlash and understand it's like any film when you've got a huge book that's like 900 pages and you've got so much detail in a story, you have to miss chunks out.
Yeah.
And you can do that in film, like they did it with the Lord of the Rings, they've done it with the Harry Potter films. There's certain things they've had to take out the book and not put into the film. But then the great thing I was seeing with television, you can take story and put elements from the books into the series and expand on the lore. And I think they've pretty much done that with Welcome to Derry.
Yep.
And I'd like to see them, if they do an Insidious television show, to do that, because I know Blumhouse are planning a Conjuring TV prequel series. It's either a prequel television series or a prequel movie about. It's called The Conjuring: The First Communion. It's a film. I've just remembered, but
Okay.
there is actually talks of a Conjuring television show as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, judging by, like, let me see here, because where is it? So, despite the fact that the Red Door wasn't like the greatest, it still made $189 million. So each one of these films in this particular series cost under 20 million to make, but they've grossed over 150 million each time.
So they've
So
all made a
that's insane. That's insane. So they're making money. So like you said, if they decide to go with a series, now's the time to do it. Strike while your iron is hot, and you can get that made. Like, that's the way to go.
I think they'll see how these two, the art kind of doing something different with the franchise, because I think the Bleeding World is going to be a completely fresh story with new characters and not focus on what they've done previously. In Threads, Insidious Tale, that one's got me the most curious because I'm really wanting to see what that's going to be about.
Yeah.
But they're obviously looking at ways to continue the franchise and continue, to keep people interested. And like you say, bring where a Quinn Paranormal Investigate series with Elise by our side,
Yeah.
And obviously I think they'll feature Specs and Tucker in some way, shape or form, or characters similar to them. But
Yeah.
what is, my friend DJ Anubis, your ratings in order of films?
Well, this would probably change if I ever watch it, because the way you described The Last Key is actually pretty good. And I like the fact that you say it's darker. But for now, because I have not seen it, I just put it last because I can't give it a rating. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah. I think it's darker because it delves into Elise's backstory when she was abused by her dad, and like what you've seen her dad do, and then obviously it's got the supernatural element, and
And plus, it also connects like the first two films, so it's like at least you have a direct connection. Now, the Red Door is part of that, but that really just deals with Dalton and Josh. That's really just
it's like the aftermath of the first two films, basically.
Yeah. So at number 4, of course, the Red Door. It's not my favorite at all. I only give like a 2 out of 10. I don't really like it. But it is what it is. But at number 3, I have Chapter 2 at 6 out of 10. And then at number 2, I have Chapter number 1 at 7 out of 10. And then number 1, Chapter 3 at 8 out of 10. So really, the one that's not really the biggest part of the series is the one that I like the most, which I thought was just amazing. So
yeah, for me, right at the bottom, it has to be Chapter 2, and I'm going to give that a 6 out of 10. The second one, would have to probably be chapter 4, The Red Door. That's going to get 6 out of 10. Then it will be chapter 1. That's getting a 7 out of 10. Then it's going to be the Last Key. That's next. That's getting a 8 out of 10. And then for me, chapter 3 is number 1. That is going to get a 9 out of 10. Because it's the emotional attachment.
I can see that the way you described The Last Key, because they are tied to the third one. That makes sense. So that's cool. And I was surprised when I saw 3, and I said, I actually liked this better than the first 2. So I knew that.
And the reason I put chapter 2 last is because I love the story, but I hate the jump scares.
Yeah.
The jump scares spoil it for us. That's too predictable. Where with the fourth one, even though the story isn't as good, I feel is the second one. I think it's got better scares.
Yeah.
Like you said, that one. There's some, like, I know you mentioned where he's in the MRI and the thing comes running, but I actually quite like that.
Well, I like that he's looking down there, but I would have rather just had like this shadow running at him rather than actually seeing it, because obviously once you see it, it's kind of like, okay, well, because it's the same thing with the red face guy. It's like, he's scary looking, but it's like, it's too in broad daylight. He's not scary at all. So the most scarier part, which really is more of a drawing, is when Elise is looking up at the shadows. And we're supposed to envision her seeing the demon up there, but the guy's drawing it. And so by the time the mother looks at it, she can see that, the demon's up there, but it's only through a drawing. So I think that is creepier than actually seeing the demon.
It's like our thing with horror films. The thing is, a jump scare, it lasts for 5 minutes and your heart will jump, you'll beat, and them emotions and feels are gone in 2 seconds. But if you create a movie that is so intense, has atmosphere, makes you feel uncomfortable and makes you feel yuck, them feelings last with you for a longer.
And the funny thing is too, is that, like we talked about, was the third one has such good emotion in it that the only thing that kind of saves the other part of the franchise is Elise's character, because even when she passes away, you can see, I think it's at the end of either I think it's in a 2, that she says something to him outside the front of the house. And then she kind of like, so she's trying to make it kind of emotional, but Patrick isn't really able to convey that in a way that helps the character. And that's why it fails in the Red Door, because we want to see that emotion there, but it's just not there. And it's
You would
hard.
think after the first 2 films there would be a breakthrough where he finally allows the walls to drop and he finally shows the emotions that he's blocked in for so long.
Right.
Couldn't agree with you more. But yes, the Insidious films are very interesting. They're one of the franchises that put Blumhouse on the map. Let us know in the comments below what your take is on the Insidious franchise. Do you enjoy it? Do you not like it? Let us know in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for any future franchise discussions within the world of horror, put them in the comments below as well. But my good friend, Mr. DJ Anubis, tell us what is coming to the Metal Tavern Radio.
Well, tomorrow, at some point during the day, I'm going to hopefully sit down with director Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed Saw 2, Spiral, as well as a new movie called Twisted, which I have to get around to watching here soon. But I'm only going to have like 20 minutes to talk to him because it's all done on their end. So I'm going to interview him the best I can and, hit him up, because he also did a nice chapter in the Tales of Halloween anthology that I love so much. So I'm just very curious to sit down with him and talk to him a little bit. So, but that probably won't air until the 4th, because there's an embargo on the review. So I'm going to watch the film, review it, and then add in my interview with Darren, and then I'll post it on that day.
Is that when the film comes out on the 4th?
Yes, yeah, it's going to be streaming and renting on that day. So, but it's called Twisted. It has the girl from the Terrifier series in there.
Oh, cool.
And then has I know I'm going to kill his name. It's a black gentleman, Abuzu Nusian or something.
Yeah,
He's
he's a huge star. He's been in Marvel. He's been in
Yeah,
Gladiator.
he's a really good actor, and so I know I butchered his name, so apologies. But yeah, so they're in that film. There's some other names in there as well, but hopefully that goes well. And then later in the evening, I'll get with Olvin for our next chapter in the Silver Screen Savants as we do 1995's Mortal Kombat to review that. And then on Saturday, Nick and I are going to do the top albums of this month that I've listened to as far as like rock and metal. We're just going to kind of break down each month before we get to the end of the year and do our best stuff. So it's basically all I got right now. I haven't really set up next week yet, but.
Yeah, as for me in the entertainment headquarters, I've got a week's holiday, so I've got vacation time, so I'm gonna have some time to myself, have a little break, have some fun, go out into the real world for a little bit and enjoy myself. I do have some things coming up though by the end of next week. We do have on the 6th of February, we have Omega Man, the retro classic movie show where you and I, my friend, are being joined by Thrash Pandupons.
Oh, Thrashy.
He loves that movie and he would like to be a part of that retrospect. Then on the next Kaiju Connections, I believe it's going to be Conga. That takes place on the 7th of February, and sometime I think next week as well. I'm going to the theaters because I want to see the new Sam Raimi film. I think it's Send Help.
Yeah, Neko and I actually want to see that. She's a big Rachel McAdams fan. So
yes, so I'm going to be going to see that, and I'll be putting a review up for that one. So that's what I've got planned next week on the entertainment headquarters. But thank you everybody for watching. Thank you. Please enjoy your horror. Please keep like, share, and subscribe to the entertainment headquarters. And if you love Into the Darkness, keep tuned. There's a lot more coming. In fact, the next retrospect is going to be the Exorcist franchise, which I know you, me, and Anthony.
In March, you've got Critters up on the slab too.
Critters is coming in March. Yes, I've actually decided to do that one after Exorcist because I was actually, there's a channel that started called Retro Legend in the UK, and I had the first 2 Critter films on, and I watched them, and I thought I'm going to do Critters.
So, you might actually be able to get Neko on that. She's a big fan of the Critters franchise. So,
oh, cool! I will work it around Neko hopefully. I think I've got her on the calendar. I'm not sure. But anyway, like I was saying, if you like your horror, keep watching Into the Darkness. Please like, share, and subscribe to the entertainment headquarters. And of course, you need to, I'm telling you now, you need to like, share, and subscribe to the Metal Tavern Radio, to my good buddy here, Mr. DJ Anubis, who puts some amazing content out there. But from me, from him, keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment, and we'll catch us all at the next one.